It has been a fantastic time, a time in which we've seen so many companies developing and striving, in the cultured meat space, in the cultured fat space, in the precision fermentation and the microbial fermentation space, in the plant space. I think it's a fantastic, time to create and grow a business. I'm very happy and excited to be here today speaking. I'm also honored to be able to talk after Tony's inspiring presentation. I know that this will be a long day for the audience, especially in Europe. I'm trying to capture all time zones here. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit more enticing and exciting rather than purely factual. And we'll see in the end who has the better video, Tony or myself. If we get the video to play, which I'm still going to find out now. So I decided to change the topic a little bit last minute while putting together this presentation from plant once cultured into what's in a name, because I think, as also Tony alluded, it's very interesting to understand where this hybrid concept comes from, and also why it might be beneficial in the application that we're looking at. So if you look at the Oxford Languages dictionary, basically you will find that hybrid is a noun, and it's basically a combination of two things, right? So for example, the offspring of two plants or animals or different species or varieties. So a mule is a hybrid of a horse and a donkey, and can also be a combination of two things, right? So a thing made by combining two different elements. So for example, reggaeton music is a hybrid of reggae and hip hop music. So here you have a mule dancing to reggaeton, and definitely qualifies as a hybrid. Is it the hybrid we're looking at today? Probably not. So I want to have a look at further hybrid models and concepts that we're confronted with in our daily world, and also understand why those hybrids and hybrid concepts are beneficial to us as users. You have, probably even more so in the with and post-COVID world, hybrid concepts coming up. There's hybrid mobility, where you can both fuel your car based on conventional hydrocarbon systems, or power your car through electric energy. You will see more and more hybrid conferences coming up. For example, you have hybrid work and hybrid tools in your daily life already today. So I think those concepts are amazing because they, for example, in the mobility example, bridge the ecological footprint together with convenient charging networks at any gas station. A hybrid work environment allows you to earn income and spend some time at home with your family at the same time. A hybrid conference really brings the best of two worlds together in that it offers a scaled reach towards a global audience, as we're doing it right now, but also a personal interaction, for example, of the speakers behind the stage. And hybrid tools such as the spork allow you to eat your soup and the spaghetti at the same time. So now let's get a bit more serious and also content specific, focusing on the hybrid product that we want to talk about today, which is cultured fat and plant protein. We believe a perfect match. Why is it a perfect match? Tony alluded to some of those elements already before. Those are on the left side pictures of, this is our original cultured fat that we're growing in the lab and in bioreactors that we're harvesting every day. What are the beneficial elements of both cultured fat and plant protein? And I think Geza just made a strong statement on the craving, which is a part, or highlighted the craving, which is part of our mission statement. Cultured fat really drives full animal-like taste and satisfies this craving for meatiness, which is a functional property that is very hard to be found in plant-based oils and fats. It also provides the sizzling cooking experience that you're so much looking for when frying a steak in the pan. It drives texturization and binding properties when mixed with the right plant-based matrix. And the fat is not from monocultures or derived from monocultures or slaughters. It's really produced in a very clean and ethical way. I think we hopefully, on this call at least, agree to those points. And then when combined with plant protein, we can really improve the ecological footprint, because now look at the fine print. Pea farming, for example, has a ecological footprint of 0.4 kilograms of CO2 equivalents. So for each kilogram of product produced from pea farming, for example, 0.4 kilograms of CO2 are expelled. Cultured meat scores higher on that scale, scores at 7.5 kilograms equivalents, but beef comes in at on an average of 25 kilograms. So while cultured fats or meats are more sustainable from a CO2 emission perspective than the beef system, the plant protein system is even more sustainable, and hence adding the fat part for the taste and then the plant protein part for the ecological footprint from our perspective is a perfect match. There are other points, such as more affordable price points for extruded plant proteins, or also, as Tony mentioned before, just like more natural or organic plant proteins. More affordable price points than cultured meat at the moment, for sure. Also, the visual and textural elements of plant proteins today resemble meat very highly, at least when it comes to minced and kind of stripped products. And then there are also potential health benefits within the plant-based proteins that I think add to an overall beneficial equation. So that equation, or that sum of cultured fat and plant protein, we believe is really a great match for those very reasons. Now, thinking a bit ahead, where we might, where the future might lead us, I thought visualizing a little bit the past and the future on this sort of S-curve might be helpful. So S-curve comes from, I think, the field of innovation management, and it's really to show the adaptation of new innovations coming from its slow and early beginnings into the acceleration phase, and then towards stabilization. We have started with, the simple plant-based solutions, such as the pure tofu or bean patties, into texturizing vegetable protein, what we just discussed before. And but maybe I should frame this also. So we're looking at two axes here. On the y-axis, we're looking at how hard is this technology to make, and on the x-axis, does it feel and taste like meat? So typically, if you look at an S-curve, it's more like time to market versus performance. But then the hard to make is probably a good proxy for time to market, and feels like meat is definitely the performance we're going for. So we want to go obviously as high as possible on the y-axis, and beyond the Beyond Burger and the Impossible meats, I think, were really the next steps that we're using texturized proteins partly, but also adding more ingredients into it, that were defined in a long scientific process. So I think Beyond Burger was actually founded 7 or 8 years before they actually brought a product to market. The same with Impossible, who's also now adding their yeast-derived heme, which is a bit harder to make, feels a little bit more like meat, but not quite there. So the next paradigm change, or the introduction of the next paradigm change, to really get to meat products that are either three-dimensional, or if not three-dimensional, but minced, at least taste fully like meat, will be decided whether or not we meet or we succeed to produce cultured hybrids. Meaning cultured fat, which we believe is the most sensible hybrid ingredient from a cultured perspective, is really the gatekeeper from entering this this kind of steep performance increase on our S-curve. If we don't manage to bridge the S-curve at this turning point, then probably we will not get to the higher value and even higher performance products, such as full steaks in any case. So we're really at a crossroads here, and I think cultured ingredients for hybrid products are a little bit if you want, the litmus test whether or not we'll see a breakthrough of our industry, if that makes sense. There are companies who are, for example, Meatech, who's the owner and parent company now of Piece of Meat after an acquisition earlier this year. Companies who are betting on exactly that S-curve, who are trying to cover a range of products, starting from hybrid meats, but also up into the higher top or right areas of the S-curve, also covering three-dimensional and even 3D printed cultured meats. I think that's also probably an interesting proposition for any investor who is interested in getting exposure to some of those technologies without having access to private market opportunities. So under the ticker MITC, the Meatech stock can be accessed, and the idea here is really to cover a whole range of products from hybrid into really three-dimensional meat-like products. Right now might actually be a good time looking at the current stock price. Now, if we look at our recent hybrid prototypes, I'm also excited to announce that we have created lots of cultured fat over the last weeks and months. So we're having several of those. These are 500. What you see here in the middle is 500 grams pure cultured fat in a jar that we make available for product collaborations. This is not a cultured product with an undisclosed amount of actually cultured ingredients. So as we see it sometimes in various prototypes, but this is half a kilogram of pure and real cultured material. We have produced several of those. We use it for prototypes, as you see here. So chicken nuggets, meatballs, various other products are currently in the making, and also for public tastes and events, which are being scheduled as we speak. Reach out if you are interested in more information around that. And then lastly, we're making those this product available also for hybrid product development collaborations with, for example, plant-based players and also others. So I think this is quite exciting news to share from our side. What you see here is the pure product and not a mix with an undisclosed amount of ingredients or share of ingredients from a cultured side. And then what I think Geza mentioned earlier, there is a study that we conducted. I didn't want to bring it at the beginning of the presentation because it's already a bit aged. So we conducted that in December 2020, where we first looked at how many companies are actually out there that are producing, that are replacing livestock, livestock meats. We found over 220 companies, and we reached out to as many as possible of them to understand if not, they were interested in integrating cultured fat as an ingredient. Now, Tony, that's probably not the study you were referring to when asking for broad-scale indicators of adaptation. However, probably a plant-based producer, so a CPG company producing animal meat alternatives, is a pretty good proxy, obviously representing a range of customers, of their own customers. So probably this can be seen as a multiplier. So first, we found that only 28% of the consumers think that the taste of meat alternatives is good or very good, which means that 2/3 thought that it's actually not good. So also coinciding with Tony's proposition that taste matters and taste needs to be improved. And 1 in 3 meat producers would also pay more for meat alternatives if they tasted more similar to meat. So this is the kind of the background information. Then we asked of those 220 companies, we managed to get a return of 50 plant-based meat companies who we asked, would you use cultivated meat ingredients in your plant-based products? And the answers were quite, I think, telling. So in general, with no more information provided, 58% said, yeah, sure. We're likely or very likely interested in employing that ingredient in our product. 66% said yes, if you can prove that it improves actually taste. So it's kind of a yes if. And then 68% say yes if it also helps us to drive clean labels, which is from our perspective the case, because you will be able to remove and reduce a range of functional ingredients in the plant-based products, for example, flavor elements. And 68% also said yes, very likely or likely to include cultured fat in our product if it also helps us to improve the texture. So I think bottom line, there's a great excitement from plant-based meat companies to embrace this new technology. However, I completely agree that a large-scale consumer study should be done, and even more so, I think it should be done not just in a theoretical way, but actually by offering them a sample to try, and then do a before and after kind of capture of consent or of their willingness to consume. And then lastly, so if you're a plant-based or also a cultured meat company and you would like to produce produce a hybrid product or get involved, I think there are various ways of collaboration between cultured companies that are producing ingredients or producing cultured material as an ingredient and plant-based partners. There are typically a couple of steps that you would want to go through. So you start with the product foundations, really think about what is the end product I'm trying to create here. Are we more looking at a sausage, a whole cut, a minced meat product, a spread, right, or any other product? Then you would study, based on the product that you've now decided, you would study the plant matrix interaction. So you would look at how does the cultured material actually interact with a pea protein, a soy protein, a mix of those, protein from fermented sources, which I think we should also pay a very close attention to going forward. You would then look at the technical equipment that is used by the plant-based producer in order to produce their product. So this could be, for example, right, an extruder, different mixers, and you would also understand how. So first of all, in which process step you would want to include and inject the cultured material, and then also understand what effect, for example, extrusion would have on your cells, on the cultured cells. You then collect and improve or collect sensory feedback and improve sensory properties of your product, and again include consumer tests as we mentioned before, and then prepare a market entry by talking to various buyers from retail basically. So this is how we would see a rollout happening. Obviously, everything is limited by and framed by regulatory timeframes. So the time to market here is not only limited by scale of production, but I think everybody in this conference is well aware of that, that the regulatory timeframes are varying depending on jurisdiction. And with that, so please feel free to reach out if you want to talk about requirements to scale the food revolution, with any technology from fermentation to cultured. If you're thinking about localizing production of protein instead of importing protein, if you're interested in hybrid product development, or are just an entrepreneur and interested in venture building and the life cycle behind. With that, I'd like to remind everyone that fat is taste and texture, and we believe it's a great match with plant-based proteins.